Continuing to read from A Mountain in Tibet, from page 89. At Tuting, the border town up in the mountains, I had seen shops and restaurants for the first time. I'd heard 3 or 4 different languages being spoken. I'd ridden in a trailer being pulled by a tractor to the airport and then flown in the cargo plane to this hot, dusty place. After the single-pointed focus of our escape, all was now confusion. Even the traditional social structure based on deference towards tulkus, monastics, and elders was difficult to maintain here. In Domalakan, I had got used to a life of privilege as the younger brother of the abbot of the monastery. But here our special status meant nothing. We were all simply refugees, fighting for survival in this foreign country. The Indian authorities insisted that nobody could leave the camp unless they had funds to support themselves or an external sponsor. All the men, young and old, monks and lamas, had to work on the road building program to earn an income. In the intense heat, this amounted to a death sentence for many, since we were so weak from hunger and disease. Though we were nominally safe, the situation was distressingly similar to what the Chinese had imposed. Frida Betty was appalled by all this, but she was unable to prevent it, though she did write to Nehru, asking him to put a stop to using refugees on the road building, and after his personal intervention, things eased up for the elderly and the lamas. Frida really admired the wisdom and dignity of the tulkus, and was especially impressed by Trungpa, whose brilliance and exceptional capacity for learning English she identified straight away. The two of them very quickly formed a close bond. In fact, within a couple of weeks, he was acting as her interpreter as she went on her rounds, visiting the sick and overseeing the food aid. A week or so after our arrival, there was an outbreak of dysentery, and I was struck down. It was a terrible time. I felt that all the life was draining out of my body. There was little to be done except wait and hope. Akon, who was a skilled physician, did what he could for me and for many others who were afflicted. I recovered, but some of the younger children and the elderly did not. We remained at Misamari for about a month, and then we were transferred by lorry to the main refugee camp at Buksa Duar, in West Bengal, where I was to spend the next few months of my life. Days after setting out, I struggled down from the lorry to take a look at our new home. I had recovered from dysentery, but had developed the first signs of what turned out to be tuberculosis, as had Yag, Setar, and both my brothers. We were a sorry and bedraggled bunch as we stood and stared at Buksa. The camp was close to the border with Bhutan and was at a higher altitude than Misamari, so it was cooler. There was a stream running through it, so water was plentiful. But nonetheless, the stench of excrement hung in the air, as so many people were simply too sick to walk to the primitive latrines. There was still a terrible shortage of medical supplies. Thanks partly to Frida's interventions, and even more to a personal request by His Holiness the Karmapa, none of our group was sent to work on the road-building program. As always, I was the beneficiary of special privilege because of being Akong's brother. Trungpa and Akong tried to make themselves useful to Frida when she visited Buksa, and she continued to single them both out, particularly Trungpa. For the first few weeks after we arrived at Buksa, I was utterly demoralized. I thought back to the village of my birth and how safe and happy I had felt there. I grieved for the loss of that time and place, and for my parents and sisters, my family and friends. Even Dol Malakan seemed, in retrospect, like a paradise, compared to the escape over the Himalayas and my current reality, displaced and disoriented in this foreign land. Though I felt completely lost, there were in fact a great many efforts being made to give us Tibetans a new start. Even the road-building program was an attempt, albeit misguided, to provide the employment that people needed. The problem was we lacked the skills that might make us more employable in a modernizing economy. We were the product of a highly sophisticated culture, but one that was completely out of step with 20th century life. When I arrived in India, I believed, as did all my companions, that the earth was flat. There was a huge gulf between us and a worldview shaped by industry, technology, commerce, and Western secular thinking. His Holiness the Dalai Lama had quickly grasped the urgent need for us all to be helped to adjust to our new world, and when he met with Nehru, he asked the Prime Minister to focus on education as the single most beneficial measure beyond essential humanitarian relief. So a school was founded in the camp at Buksa. The first places were given to monastics and lamas, since they were the most educated class and were therefore expected to make the quickest progress. As many as 1,500 monks from all four of the main Tibetan Buddhist lineages were sent there, and Akong, Trungpa, and Jamyang were, of course, prime candidates. They had both Frida Bedi and lately His Holiness the Karmapa himself advocating for them. His Holiness the Karmapa was already at Rumtek, his monastery in Sikkim, by the time we arrived at Buksa. When news reached him that we had made it to the camp, he wrote to Trungpa and Akong, welcoming them to India, and instructing them to attend the college. Somewhat to my surprise, he also stipulated that I should attend, even though I was not a monk. So off I went, though I was, if anything, even less motivated to study than I had been at Dol Malakan. I struggled to see it as an opportunity. What was the point in studying when the future looked so hopeless? I was ill, a refugee who didn't speak the language of my new country or understand anything about it. But if His Holiness had seen fit to single me out, then I wasn't going to argue. There were no alternatives in any case. So I began to learn Hindi and geography and some basics about contemporary affairs. The food was just as dreadful at the college as elsewhere in the camp, and before long we all had parasitic tapeworms. One of the boys with whom I was friendly told me that if you drank liquid paraffin we used in our lamps, it would kill the worms and wash them away. One of my jobs was to collect our weekly ration of paraffin, and one evening I decided to drink a whole mug of it. My stomach felt as if it contained a fireball, and I was sick continuously for hours. But luckily I suffered no long-term ill effects. To my delight, it did the trick and killed the horrible long tapeworms. Not long after we began at Buksa College, we got word that Frida Bedi had collapsed, her health destroyed by strain and overwork. She had left the camps and returned to her family home in Delhi to recover, though she continued to work part-time for the Social Welfare Board in the Ministry of External Affairs. Trungpa didn't stay long at Buksa after Mrs. Bedi's departure for Delhi. He was as restless, driven, and curious about the world as ever. When he received another letter from His Holiness the Karmapa, this time inviting him to come and see him at Rumtek, Trungpa didn't hesitate. The Indian authorities had not relaxed their ban on anyone leaving the camp without a means of support. Political tensions with China were worsening all the time, so it was even less likely that they would give permission for a high-profile Lama to travel. But Trungpa was determined to visit his spiritual leader. Yag Rinpoche and Setar said they would go with him. They were grievously ill, but they wanted to see His Holiness the Karmapa one more time before they died. Along with Trungpa's faithful attendant, Yong Ten, the group escaped in the middle of the night by scrambling under the camp's high wire fence where it crossed the stream. We are continuing with our reflections now that Lama Yeshe Rinpoche and his brothers have gotten to India, and they are in the refugee camps.
It's a pity after that, all that ordeal went through, I went into another one.
It's unbelievable.
Yeah, with all the new environment and diseases and new malnutrition and all the diseases are spreading around the whole camp, you know.
Very unexpected additional obstacles, because it would have appeared they would have triumphed and overcome almost everything they would have to overcome.
Yes. So it looks like even those who made it to India won't all make it.
It does appear that way, doesn't
Yeah,
it?
it does appear
It's
that
a bit surprising.
Yeah. And pretty Jamyang's riddled with tuberculosis.
That's right.
And Lama Yeshe has it also.
Yes. And Dr. Rinpoche had it also.
Yeah.
That must have been such a challenge for Dr. Rinpoche, because he would normally have known how to treat everything.
Yeah.
But these diseases that they were encountering hadn't been in Tibet, so...
It's completely new.
Yes.
Completely new thing altogether.
And no access to the plants that he was used to using for treatment either.
Aye.
So he would have to be learning very quickly a brand new way of treating.
Yeah, I think that the best way to get out of that situation is if they were able to get to the West, you know.
Yes.
They've got all the treatment they need.
Yes.
But there was none of that there.
The camps had the very least amount of medical care available.
Yeah, that's right. So it was a struggle, real struggle, you know.
Additional obstacles, very unexpected.
That's right, yeah.
Because there had been no mention of these hardships before they crossed the border.
No, that was unexpected to them, wasn't it?
Yes.
They weren't expecting to go into all that again. They thought once they hit India, they had their freedom.
Yes.
But it didn't work out like that.
Yes.
No. So it's a pity that was like that.
It was very interesting, wasn't it, how involved His Holiness 16th Karmapa was in being aware of the conditions in the camps and being concerned about individual lamas and rinpoches that he had known about, and making sure that they were going to be okay.
Yes, so you had to be saved to be able to give the teachings out to people, you know.
That's right.
So if they'd have gone, all the teachings would be going with them, you know.
That's right.
So something had to be done to save the teachings in that way, you know.
Yes. Well, it's a good thing that Trungpa was willing to risk another escape, wasn't it?
Yeah.
To get himself to Karmapa's Rimtek.
Aye.
One thing after another. It's unbelievable, actually.
Yeah.
Really hard to understand that there wasn't immediate relief after they had reached their target and crossed.
I know. It was very, very sad that happened, you know. That's right. And hardly any medicines to cure them, you know, or to help them, you know.
Yes.
There weren't the herbs that Rinpoche was used to working with, they didn't have them. That's right. Even at that, the diseases were completely different. That's right. You know. So it was a bit of a struggle. Yeah, this is a difficult period of time, isn't it? Because they're already not having all the energy they had when they started out. That's right. So they really have to call on their inner reserves and really help each other so much. See, once they got to the borders, where the borders, before they crossed the border to India, that they got fed and they got strong again. And then they lost that strength when they got into India, and their bodies weren't strong enough to fight the diseases that was going on, you know. Yes, the resilience was down, the resistance was down. So it was like survival of the fittest, wasn't it? Yeah. It's a difficult part of the story to think about. That's right. Because as you said, it's so very sad.
And we just want them to be okay.
Yeah.
And to have all the difficulties erased. We want them to have happiness but also health.
Aye. Even Temple Kappa had to leave.
That's right.
America to get cured.
Yes.
And he wouldn't come up, 16 come up again, said he wouldn't survive in the situation he was in. They had to get him away.
Yes.
To survive, you know.
Well, Karmapa was making sure that all of the people, as you said, that were trained up in carrying the lineage and all the tulkus could carry on as best they could.
Yes. Yeah, and had to carry on with sickness that they inherited themselves, you know. And they had to struggle on, do their best.
Yes. So it's very understandable why there was a lot of discouragement as well, as then also both Trungpa and Rinpoche rallying to try to help the people that were suffering around them also.
That's right.
And Rinpoche not escaping but staying back to care for those who were sick.
That's right. Stayed behind to help.
Yes. Because probably once that group escaped, then they would have made it even more difficult for people to escape, having realized that somebody could get out.
Yeah. Yeah, and only that, the people left behind were needing help.
That's right.
The more people would escape, there wouldn't be much help for everybody, would there?
Yes.
Yeah, it's a difficult situation. Yeah.
Yes. So this is a challenging time for them.
Yes.
And we think about all these insurmountable obstacles, or what feels like very, very difficult circumstances that we've all faced when we are in this sort of a chapter.
Yeah.
It isn't easy going.
No.
But at the same time, we are very much aware that everyone was trying to make the best of the situation.
Yes.
And continue to move forward towards their goals.
Yes.
It's the carrying of the lineage and its preservation.
The Dharma kept them going. The Dharma.
That's right.
Kept them, giving them the courage to keep carrying on, you know.
And their good actions would have given them some good karma that would have helped to balance out some of these obstacles.
Yes.
Lama Yeshe Rinpoche is once again very lucky that he didn't have long-term consequences for drinking that paraffin.
Yeah.
Just incredible. These obstacles and overcoming them.
Good job there wasn't any matches and sparks around.
Yes.
Or good job we didn't sit near a fire either.
Yes.
Because enough heat, enough heat in the sun itself.
So we are sort of in this with them. We're not there, but we're feeling it.
Yeah.
And it does take our attention to the pain that is a part of this world.
Yeah.
And sometimes we're in situations where that's all we can do is just be aware of it and acknowledge that it is there.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay.
Okay.